Hello and welcome to the show. Today we are joined by an entrepreneurial leader in technology. He's passionate about enabling others to build a culture of innovation in the places they work. Let's welcome to the show Andreas Angelani. He's the senior VP of global. Let me say that again. Welcome to the show, Andreas Angelani, senior VP, global head of digital engineering at Cognizant. Hi, Andreas. How are you?
Hi guys, very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Yeah, no, I'm glad we got to connect and have you on the show. Really excited to talk about kind of your viewpoint on the tech space and where it's headed. So first is our very standard icebreaker question. It's what is your first car, your first concert, and your first job?
Okay, so my first car was I grew up in Argentina, so we have different cars there, but it was actually an American car. Chevrolet Corsa was the model, little thing, very cute little thing. And I got it when I was what 19, something like that. My first concert, oh my God, was a Metallica concert at the River Plate Stadium in Buenos Aires. Man, I couldn't even say when it was, but it was when I think it was first year of college or something, like a huge a concert. I loved Metallica back then, so hope this speaks a little about who I am.
That's a
Um,
big show, yeah.
it's big. And the first job was as a programmer for the council, my hometown. I actually built their first software to file, their laws and edicts and stuff. So that was the first thing I earned money on it. So yeah, what I do now, but I'm not programming, day to day. But that's what I love. So that was the first thing I did. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, the whole career in technology from start to today.
Yeah, that's right. I knew I
Great.
could make
Well,
money, so I thought, whoa, this is I love it, and it kind of makes so let's see what happens, and it kind of paid off a bit. So yeah, absolutely.
that's great. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's something that you love to do and you just kind of grow and learn more as you continue.
Yeah.
So really jumping into the meat here, we've read a few things that you've put out there. I saw something where you said business technology is primed for a paradigm shift. It's a pretty big statement. I was wondering if you could unpack that with me a little bit.
Yeah, it's not just about the technology for the business. It's and namely within technology, I normally refer to technologies that power new engagements and empowering. Oh, it's really every industry that is moving into this era where software really powers a lot of the how they engage with clients and how they gain efficiencies. Initially, software was viewed as more of a industrial scaling thing, but then as software became more intelligent and better engaging from a access, mobility, user interface. Now we're thinking about software as the really impacting and becoming the business or an essential core component of the business itself. So in a way, that's the disrupting traditional services industries, services and products like financial services, insurance, healthcare, which have normally been in this particular era very very slowed by compliance and regulation. They're actually jumping on the transformation wagon because they feel and they see that it's really a competitive differentiation for them if they can actually leverage the power of software to connect and to engage. So it's more about a global change into to kind of this form of innovation that's powered by software. And the pandemic really kind of sped up things. It's now news that as people started working from home, we really depending on that, and working from home all the time is also disruptive in a lot of in the human psyche. We're social beings, so software in a way needs to be a lot more engaging in order to kind of fill that gap, and that even that is not enough, but it's creating a big shift. So some of the traditional company industries like healthcare has embraced telehealth, for example, and wearables, and a lot of the banking services have gone branchless and leveraging their own app to engage with consumers, which you really, in most cases, don't really enjoy driving to a bank anymore. So it's generalized a lot of the trends and sort of accelerated the trends that we've seen kind of slowly penetrating. Now it's more than obvious that software is here to kind of help us, define the new future, right? So it's not digital, as we say, digital going digital, or digital transformation is not really a segment or an add-on anymore. It's just becoming an essential piece of business strategy. So that's what I meant with kind of, it's prime for a paradigm shift. That's long-winded, but that's what I
No,
meant.
I mean you brought up a few really big things there. There's these very heavily regulated industries seeing the value in digital transformation and kind of really rethinking their approach to business in a lot of ways, and that's been fueled by the pandemic and the work from home culture that's come from that. And it's really, even just as a person who works from home, uh, separate from my role in the technology industry, it's pretty easy to see the recent explosion in technology that's kind of all focused on connecting people and getting that kind of stuff,
Yep.
filling in that gap, like you said. What are there other changes that have kind of primed this shift in paradigm?
Yeah, so with this acceleration, the cultures of the companies were also affected, and it's not just an experience to reach out to their clients, but also our consumer base, but also to engage their employee base, and make sure that they stay, and then they keep themselves motivated. So a lot of companies are thinking about a different way of working. So a way where the software is more of an enabler, and it helps engage better in not only just fill the gap, but also kind of define a new sort of more of hybrid experience, versus one or the other way, right? Every day in the office or every day at home. If we didn't have the software in the middle, we wouldn't be able to do it. But I think that there's a lot of refinement yet to do, because human connection is essential for us. We've seen it. I mean, a company has many, many employees around the world, and we've seen that, all home or all office doesn't really work anymore. When people went home, they realized that, hey, we can make it work anyway, and I don't have to go through all this terrible experience in commuting that if I have to do every day, especially in the big cities. So they're like, okay, I don't want to go through that substandard experience anymore. I want to optimize. So it's a moment for us to optimize, right? Which is not one extreme or the other extreme. So we worked quite a lot in making sure that we really differentiate what we call what is a heads up moment, which is I want to meet, I want to be face to face with somebody and communicate in a community, be part of the community, and what is a heads down moment, which is just want to concentrate. We have a bunch of coders, so imagine that we used to have and dedicate a lot of seating space to so that people would go sit down, put their headphones on, and just not talk to anybody, right? And that was like the cool way of looking at all these programmers just looking at the screen. There were obviously moments where they were synchronized and just go to a chill out room or whatever, or just play some games. But the reality is that all that can be better orchestrated. Productivity is much higher if you organize that set of activities. So that's why we define these kind of two categories. So when if I want to go to the office, then my group goes to the office. We meet, we do the heads up activities on the office. So going to the office is a lot more fun than before the pandemic. You know what I mean? So that's the type of experience that we're trying to kind of elevate and make more systematic right now. And the same happens with our clients. So the benefit that a service company with a people company like ours has is that we're, our people is our brain, is our company, is us. It's us, is our people, it's our culture. So we have a lot more focus, and we've done a lot more experiments to make sure that we can realize a better experience as more of as an opportunity post pandemic than oh, we gotta do the return to office thing, and how do we do with that? No, you have to create the incentive for people to get back to the office. It's a very different mindset, right? It's more of a growth mindset versus, oh, we're going back to the past. No, it's not going to happen. The pandemic really modified for good. So there is an aspect of differentiation in employee value proposition, how we actually learn from experiences in the pandemic and make it better moving forward. So that's an area where we're working quite significantly. So that's another area of impact, I would say.
Yeah, employee experience is a huge part of this too. I often default to thinking about how companies serve, their customers, but there's this other group of people that they're serving now too.
Oh yeah. And so I think it's just an essential part of strategy, combining the incentives, what is the value to the customer and what is the value to the people, and make sure that those are synchronized, right? So if there's value to people, and at the end of the day, I mean, it's all about people, right? So if there's value to people, people are going to be in a better position to serve the client, right? So that the more service oriented company it is, the better. But also, in product companies, there's going to be better design, better development, better logistics, better supply chain management if people are hooked up and and believing in the purpose and just belonging and happy to belong, versus people that are, oh, I gotta go to the office because now we're going back to, we just had to go back because they want to see us and control us, and that's not how it works anymore, right? So
Right. No, and so we talk about this from the why, right, perspective, like why are people doing this and what's causing it, but thinking about how this kind of perspective or this change happens in bigger companies, what is your concept, like what's your perspective here? There's a lot of companies that want to make this change and they want to move really fast.
yeah, so they're companies and companies, right? They're the service companies. I think they're progressive in their approach because retention has been an issue during the pandemic. The way that technology companies are viewing it right now is they are a little bit more restrictive because the pandemic kind of overvalued them. So that they're going through an adjustment phase. But the reality, and that's why you see a lot of layoffs in the big names, etc. But I don't think that this is going to be a permanent situation. The reality is that people that make technology happen, and normally the ones that work on software, are such a small global population that you really have to, at the end of the day, long term is supply demand, right? So the gap it's tremendously large, and it's enlarging and continues. So I think what we're living right now is kind of a blip, right? Given the tremendous expansion and multiples that these companies enjoyed during a few years. And there's also expectations changing, right, in between clients and partners, because the technology production is embedded in everything. Clients, a company itself cannot just fulfill absolutely everything. They need to partner differently. So, a lot of companies were doing sort of outsourcing, like I'm gonna outsource the stuff that I'm not interested in, or that I want to do at a lower cost. Well, that mindset is changing as well, because everything you do affects your final product for your clients and your employees. So you want really focus on quality and experience overall. So all these kind of more transactional relationships are becoming more partner-like relationships, leveraging the advantages of, for example, a lot of the client relationships that we've had in the past. Some of them were more transaction and cost-centric, are moving to a more of a blend of, okay, I'm going to do this offshore because of cost, but those also I want to make sure that whatever I save in cost, you saying Cognizant help us innovate in value. So I want to have a blend, and that is not just a cost-based relationship. It's more of a partner like engagement, right? So that's one. Obviously, the way we work has changed, right? We are recruiting now all over the country in the U.S. We're recruiting all over the country in every single space. We have people in Eastern Europe. We're recruiting. We used to recruit in every single city. Now we're recruiting. One city recruits everywhere. So there's a lot of change in the processes as well, and so what we call catchment areas of where the employees are, right? Our talent. Also, we, like any other company, we got affected by the resignation, the Great Resignation. So we had to redefine a lot of the policies and take a hard look at what our cultural diversity was, and if it was really it was just a policy or it was actually taking place. So a lot of the digging into, does it actually, this thing that we said that we were going to do and we're doing, does it actually work? So it's bringing a lot of more of I would say, introspection into how we actually do business, right? So every company, I think that every industry, not just ours, is going through this phase right now of reevaluation. Sort of, you're gonna, are we doing the right thing? What is it? What is it? What makes us successful in 5, 10, 20 years? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And having the right team or the right culture to kind of grow your team is a big part of that.
Yep.
Um, wanted to change gears a little bit because another topic that you kind of bring up in some of your other work is this concept of speed and velocity in business. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So what we mean here is this: it's a little bit of a nerdy analogy, the velocity formula versus the speed formula, right? So the speed formula, the difference is like that it's just the space. I mean, you're going there, you're going somewhere that it's a journey, right? So a lot of clients, when the or company, I just don't want to mention any clients, getting myself in trouble, but a lot of companies have adopted, for example, the adoption of technology, they've done it to gain efficiencies and go faster, but are they building the right thing, right? So are they doing it with that right purpose? So in the initial, you know let me give you just a very, very simple example. In the age when the age of the internet started, lots of companies started to adopt new technology, and banks, for example, they created their home banking in there, and they started to imitate everything that they were doing in a branch that never differentiated them. Fintech was born because of that bad implementation, if you think about it, right? If the large banks had actually embraced engagement as a priority, experience of the customer as a priority, and they had built something that was differential, they wouldn't have had so much disruption, right? But they built just an imitation of their own processes, and they connected to their core banking. So they really didn't change anything. They just provided an access. And then companies like, I don't know, Marcus for Goldman Sachs, they came up and they kind of disrupted part of the market. And many other companies did the same. And the banks that actually created the best experience are the ones that ended up winning. A lot of brands kind of got premiumized because of their online and digital experience. So that's what we call kind of velocity. It's just you do it fast, but you do it with a transformational purpose. There are other examples that this is how they approach their market, right? What I've just said, in terms of experience. And others is how they approach their products, right? So I just now comes to mind. We work with a pharma company, drug manufacturer, research and manufacturing, that they did, they have a drug for Crohn's disease, right? So imagine, how does digital affect that? I mean, you wouldn't even think about it, but the reality is that by building technology around it and building an engaging app that helped the patient, right, help the the person with Crohn's disease of or ulcerative colitis to understand, how to inject. Some great cases they have to inject themselves. A lot of people have fear needles. How to do it in a safe way, to monitor them, the food intake, to understand what happens in their day-to-day life. Actually, that thing become an app became part of the product itself. You wouldn't even think of, well, a drug company that's producing an app. Well, it's very interesting. What happened is because, imagine that the direct contact between the drug manufacturer and the patient itself allowed for a huge amount of data collection that they could actually use to refine the drug. And not only that, they got a much better brand positioning because people were like being helped by, we even created features where, they if they were in an emergency, they could find a bathroom nearby. They could, all that stuff that, you wouldn't even think about it. But if you're thinking about that person that's suffering that disease, and you think about how you can fill the gaps and how is it that you can make their lives a little bit easier, that you get the data in return, right? So, highly regulated industries, normally the culture and the mindset of the pharma is not in that space, right? But in this case, it happened and it created a tremendous difference in how they actually viewed product, right? So that's what we call velocity. Velocity is more about, going somewhere using technology in a way that actually makes an impact, right? And it's not just about releasing something faster or saving money on a process, right? So it's about experience, and fundamentally we say it's about, adopting a more emotional connection, around the product or service you're providing, and embracing that in a way that really gives something back, right? Because that at the end of the day comes back to the brand. It comes back to the company. It's an investment well spent if it's executed correctly. So, there's a lot of another is the impact of how technology is implemented or applied. The artificial intelligence talk, for example, has been going on for many years, right? So, lots of companies have done, but it's not about the AI as a whole. It's about the application of AI, right? What matters. And traditionally, there are a lot of companies. If you think about it, you'll be surprised how many companies are actually using AI. But in most cases, it doesn't really do anything to the experience or to the business. It's just a little report or just some insight, not transformational, right? That could be speedy. It could fix here and there something tactical. But other companies have really revolutionized it, right? They have adopted it to, I don't know if you've seen these new products with, chat and, the things that are really conversational, AI that writes essays, which is a bit scary to be honest because it's so good. But that is the application of AI into, producing or music playing or, or actually improving certain aspects of day-to-day life that you wouldn't even, that would be surprising and life improving to people, right? So that's where we see it, right? So in essence, it's an aspect of how we approach the implementation of technology or the application of technology, and to what purpose. So, and that has to do with also what there's a lot of jargon about agile transformation, and a lot of the agile transformation implementations are about speed, right? Ship something faster, ship ship something cheaper. But what are we shipping? Why are we shipping what we're shipping is not always part of the end goal.
You just gave us this really great example of how like a pharma company is harnessing velocity, compared to kind of the typical agile standard, which is just to make the bottom line better. So it's really interesting to think about, how we almost like to call it design thinking kind of applies to technology, and creating new technology. Um, what can our listeners do today to start thinking about how they approach their work with more of a velocity mindset?
Yeah, so it's a matter of how engage and how to engage partners in a different way that really have that native experience in the areas of technology capability and also organization that could help the more traditional non-native to embrace the benefits of or the opportunities that the new era of digital provides. And this is obviously easier said than done. It's a matter of combining also goals, not only short term but also long terms in creating this partner ecosystem. And this is kind of found it's founded on the assumptions and the it was more of fact than the assumptions that not every company has all the capabilities required to disrupt themselves and to while doing that be still stable and perform the business while it transforms. Um, I I wrote a book about it. It's called Transforming While Performing. It's about forming these engagements that are geared towards innovation, while the company keeps its core operation running, right? It's more challenging for the more traditional businesses because they, you know, they have a cash flow that they have to continue feeding, and they have costs that are not always going to be or look the same, after the innovation happens, if the innovation is truly industrialized. So it's not just about creating an app and rolling it out. It's about really to make sure that some of the innovations that make the company unique in the various areas, either it's a go to market or product strategy or distribution or even their talent development. How is it industrialized at a level that really impacts mainstream and becomes the next big thing for the company in the following years? So it's a matter of really leveraging the resources of that ecosystem, but building the ecosystem is absolutely key. So we are really working with a lot of companies that are going through this phase. We ourselves are going through this phase. No, I think that nobody is exempt from this massive transformations going on. But what's very important is that the culture is open to innovation by consolidating knowledge from the underlying partnership foundation that they have. So there has to be active building of that level of partnership to make sure that they can actually scale their innovation efforts.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Partnership, people, like you said earlier, people often think, oh, I'll just outsource the work I don't want to do, and don't think about these partnerships more and as a partner, for lack of a better word. Um, well, thank you so much for your time. It was great having you on the show and getting a little bit of insight on, what you think about the kind of what's going on in the world. We're at the beginning of the year. It's 2023. Any big predictions for what's to come this year in this space?
I think that this year is going to be pretty interesting, a bit volatile in terms of what's happening with tech, and it will affect us all. And also, I think that return to office is a big deal this year, post pandemic. There are multiple implementations of that experience, so we'll see who wins. We added a chapter to our book, Transforming While Performing, in the beginning of the pandemic, and we will be updating that with our predictions on what is happening throughout the year. Because our company has 350,000 people. Obviously, it's a very important topic. So it's a quite interesting, topic for us. Also, professional development really is an area of focus this year, at least for us, but all service companies. I would say we've had a lot of disruption as an industry over the last few years on these resignations and people moving from place to place. So it's time to, with a little bit more stability now, given all these adjustments that are going on in the market, to really think about what's long-term strategy and what is the employee value proposition, and how is it that we form people that could stay longer. So we ourselves and many others are working on this. We created a whole model that we're scaling that we called Studio X, which is a new operating model that kind of founds the culture of collaboration and hybrid work and constant learning. And we've been doing R&D from this for several years now, even before the pandemic, where we're launching and rolling out at scale tools that allow people to engage better in a much more hybrid workspace. We've built apps for that are sort of growing, outgrowing the sort of hoteling typical apps that you have when you go to an office that has floating desks into an experience we call Studio Go that you can actually book an experience and bring people in to that experience. So it's not just about the space, but what happens in that space, right? So if you want to do, let's say a client comes and there's a client's experience visit. So there are certain things that are more templatized for client visits. There, if you want to go and do a product iteration planning, there are elements and props that are put together, and there are activities and structures that are put together, and there's a concierge team that is at the place that prepares the space. All this stuff is what we are focusing on, sort of codifying better at scale this time on talent. And then on client, really it's about, you know, cross-pollinating more from industry to industry, what an industry is doing, and creating sort of sub-industry offerings that allow one industry to see how another industry has leveraged this. And the pharma example that I gave you before is a good example of that, because we basically cross-pollinated from another example in a completely different area and said, what about this? And say, we'll try it out. So a lot of that cross pollination is happening as well. So ultimately, we're working on just how to build a more robust culture, and that's a lot of companies are focused on that in this completely new era, where not every rule is written. I think that most rules are not written. So we are definitely a Cognizant embracing change, and we want to make sure that the changes and the benefits and the impact of hybrid work and how we want to take it to next level is impactful not only to a small population, but a wider population that can see kind of the long-term benefits of just belonging to a more progressive culture.
So, big focus on both sides of the coin there, with employee experience and the client experience. Not a big surprise that those are kind of your predictions for the year. It kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier. So that's always good.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that has been a focus, but there's going to be a lot more focus right now because we need to kind of understand things better now as they scale up, right? Because we now have different, so in our case, we have some areas of the company that are fully hybrid, like it's working. But that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily that in a market, you cannot just copy and paste in another market and it's just going to work. That's not so you need to start trying piloting and then trying it a bigger extent, and also how it works with the client, right? So a lot of clients were used to having their own office in our offices, for example, where they fully control even the access proxies and everything. And now everything is kind of opened up. So how does security play a role and confidentiality, especially when we're managing customer data in this new, more hybrid environment? So there's a lot of challenges to overcome this year that are going to sort of come out in a way, materialize, crystallize how it's going to be. So it's a very interesting 2023 is a very interesting year, disruptive year, I would say, of adjustments and change and innovation. But it's fun.
Well, I guess, hold on to our seats. It's going to be another crazy year.
Well, oh, of course, yeah.
Well, thanks again for your time. Before we break here, I just want to say, where can folks follow your work? Where are you active?
So I'm actually normally on. So I have a couple books. So just if they're interested in my thoughts, and we have one which is about teams and dynamics of teams and how to organize them in this more open economy. And the other one is about transformation and performance at the same time, right? So it's like, how does a company that's not a native or a digital native kind of goes through this transition without disrupting and breaking itself apart or spending an enormous amount of money without impact? So those two pieces of thought leadership. I'm active on LinkedIn. That's kind of a professional network that I normally live in. I'm also all my kind of speaking. It's all broadcasted, so there are links there to all my YouTube channels and stuff. The Cognizant Self-Vision brand is a good also either Instagram or LinkedIn of having we have all the culture is kind of showcased there. That's kind of the studio's part of Cognizant, Cognizant Self-Vision, and obviously the Cognizant LinkedIn. I appear there all the time as well. So there are multiple points. And I always put my email. Whoever wants to communicate, Andres at cognizant.com. So it's pretty simple. If they're very interested in a very specific topic and they want to contact me directly, they can.
Oh, that's great. So yeah, keep a lookout for Andreas on LinkedIn. Look him up to see his books, and reach out if you have any questions. Thanks again for joining us. Looking forward to seeing what 2023 has in store.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, have a good one.